Hi, everyone. Happy Saturday. Welcome to Glam Hive's Winter Style and Beauty Summit. And this is our panel today on Zoom style, which is everyone's favorite pastime at the moment. My name is Kia Gooseby. I am a fashion market editor for Vanity Fair. So like I said, we've got a great panel ahead talking about style, beauty, and poise to help you live your best Zoom life. But before we get started, I just want to go over a few housekeeping notes. At any time during the session, feel free to leave your questions, comments, and any technical support requests in the chat box. This is public, so everyone can see what you're sending. We'll start our panel discussion for about 30 minutes and then leave 10 minutes at the end for a little Q&A. This session is recorded and it will be available post-event in case you want to ever refer back. Now follow us at follow us at Glam Hive and engage with us socially using our event hashtag. That's hashtag Glam Hive Live. Now, try saying that 5 times. I mean, that's a mouthful, but I just want to say a quick little thank you to our presenting sponsor, Mary Kay. Mary Kay and the Mary Kay Global Design Studio celebrate a world where beauty, fashion, and empowerment are synonymous. Mary Kay champions creative industries that are diverse, inclusive, and innovative at their core. Under Mary Kay's Global Design Studio, the company pairs with a variety of celebrity beauty artists who set the latest makeup trends on the runway at some of the most exclusive Fashion Week celebrations around the world, and additionally works with a host of global international designers. So thank you so much, Mary Kay. We couldn't do this without you. Now, without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. I want to introduce our first panelist, Shay Strager. She's a strategic fashion stylist to VIPs, executives, musicians, individuals, as well as brands. Next, we have Quinn Murphy. He is a celebrity makeup artist, the host of a podcast called In My Chair, and you can listen to Quinn on Apple, Spotify, and Google. And last but certainly but not least, Alicia Quarles. She is an Emmy Award-winning journalist, senior correspondent at Daily Mail TV, and a contributor to Good Morning America 3. So welcome, Alicia, Quinn, and Shay. Thank you so much for having this conversation with me.
Thank you, Kia.
Thanks, Kia.
So let's get started and talk about Zoom style, shall we? So Shay, I want to start with you because we were just talking before the panel got started about how excited we were to, get dressed and get glammed up and put on some clothes since we've all been sitting at home. So Zoom has taken on a whole other personality since the whole pandemic got started. How exactly would you advise people to think about style, beauty, and home now that we're socializing and conducting our work virtually more than ever before?
Well, I think, first of all, I think it's important for all of us to remember that our visual image matters. It says so much about who we are, what we do, and how we're living our lives. And, when we go on these Zoom calls, I think each and every one of us has a goal. And the goal is to get our message across. So there are 3 things I always tell my clients for Zoom prep in the style category. That is, number 1, style your surroundings. So, what you have around you, what you see in the image, like I always tell them, make sure you have professional markers so that people can easily identify that you're an expert in X. So for instance, I hope you can tell that I'm in my styling studio and that I'm a stylist. And then the second thing, I think it's important, and I hope Quinn and Alicia will talk more about this when they speak as well, is that when it comes to visual symmetry and balance, our mind trusts images if there is that symmetry and balance. So it's important that you know your face shape and that you wear clothing that complements your face shape. And then the third thing is just to make sure that you present yourself well on screen. That means being well lit, being well prepared, and then coming across engaging.
That's great. I mean, I guess I never thought there was a whole, methodical mindset to it. But, when you kind of put it that way, it just really kind of gives us a little bit more purpose and planning and preparation, and just helps us to be well prepared. Our parents always wanted us to be well prepared growing up. So I hope this now gives people the tools and the keys to be more prepared for that next Zoom meeting or event. So Alicia,
Yes.
Would you say someone should approach Zoom the same way they would a TV appearance, or no?
I would, because I've been using Zoom to do my TV appearances mostly. So I approach it the same way. Basically how you get comfortable on camera, you think of the camera as being your best girlfriend, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm gonna be relaxed and show up and show out, but it's that same premise. It's easy to, get out of bed and just roll into your Zoom. Take your shower, take your breath, put your makeup on. I'm obviously more casual today, but that usually I wouldn't do that for work. But yeah, I treat it exactly the same because we're still working, knock wood, gratefully, but you've got to make sure your professionalism is there, to Shay's point, and you're going to see yourself, in my case, on TV. I don't want to look like I didn't try.
That's true. I mean, while we all probably in the beginning were just rolling out of bed and just getting on Zoom, I think now we're taking it a little bit more serious because we've been doing this for now almost a year. We're coming up on that anniversary. So are there any pointers that you've picked up, Alicia, from like TV coaches that you could apply to Zoom that you might be able to share?
The number one tip I have, use one of these. These are obviously for your sunglasses.
Yeah.
Use this on your camera lens. These lenses get so dusty, and any micro dust can make you look like you have an imperfection. A lot of people don't know how sensitive they are. So make sure you're cleaning your lens pretty much every day. And then also, to Shay's point about your surroundings, I like bright colors. Like I want to stand out and show out. So, if it was a professional day, I'd have on a red or a purple just to pop, to separate you from everyone else.
That's smart. Now I will be keeping my my cloth close by, because I think I forget about that. It's also like with your phone camera, when you're taking pictures, you forget like how much you might accidentally like touch that lens on the back, and then you've taken a photo and you go back to look at it and you're mad because it's blurry. I've done that way too many times. So, but that's a smart tip. So Quinn, when you're preparing for a Zoom meeting or event, what makeup is a must to prevent you from looking washed out?
I approach this just like I would for doing a client for a job, really. Everyone has their own kind of makeup style or don't, or how much they like to wear. I think especially for women who say, I don't wear makeup, or I do. Women who already know how to put on makeup, it's obviously that's going to show. But I think women who are like not used to wearing makeup, there are simple tricks that you can do to, I would definitely say, like in some shape or form, like make sure your eyes pop, like definitely put on mascara, curl your lashes. It's going to open up your eyes. It's the easiest trick to do, and it really has a huge impact. You might want to use a little brown pencil in between the lash line so that there's definition. You want to create layers of sheer definition without it being too strong, if that's not your vibe. I also think like taking a little bit of bronzer and just kind of framing the edges of your face can definitely like help give definition, so you don't just look like a thumb on the Zoom call. But it definitely, like looking at your face, seeing what looks blown out, like even just looking here, if I was maybe I could put a little bit of bronzer on the edges of my face, just so that if it happens to be really bright, that you just don't look flat.
Now, for those of us that might not be like a little savvy in the makeup area, like what can you do to prevent doing too much? Like how do you put on the right amount so you're not like looking like a clown?
I think the key is to do your makeup in good lighting, because everything shows. So if you have a window or you have a bathroom that has a vanity light, that's the number one thing, is get in front of the light, because you're going to see everything. And remember, most people aren't looking at you with a 10 times magnification light, right? So you don't have to really like erase everything. You can step back a little bit and say, okay, from me to the mirror, I like what I've done. I'm in bright light, so that if you can do it in bright light and see every pore and everything, then when you go into other lighting situations, you'll know that it's not too much.
So, we talked about this a little before we got started, and I was going to save this towards the end, but you kind of gave me a good segue into it, talking about light. And each of you kind of have your own little tidbits for, good lighting. So what are your recommendations for that?
If you are somewhere that has really good lighting in your apartment or home and it's daylight, go near the window. It's the easiest thing. Daylight's usually a pretty temperature of light, and that's just the easiest thing. If you're in a dark room and don't have a professional style light, take lamps, take the shades off. Like if I go to a celebrity's hotel room and it's dark, which they often are, if you don't have something like this, like your own light, take the lampshades off, lighten it up, and try and get as close as you can to the light. If you do have lights, like I have, there's one from Glamcore, this is called the makeup light. You can stick it on the wall with a suction cup or a clamp. What you really want to do is get as close as it doesn't look like you're just like, burning your retina. But I would put it in front of you and slightly up. If you put the light too high, like this, I'm exaggerating, you're going to create dark circles underneath. It's called being overlit. And if it's too low, you're going to have tons of shadows. So like when I redid a bathroom this year and I put the lighting in, I literally stood with the lights on each side of the mirror and lifted until I had no bags. And I was like, that's where it goes. Because a lot of things that people think look like bad makeup or they needed it is actually lighting. Lighting's everything for looking good on camera and for makeup. And
I agree.
that there's so many skin tones that the deeper your skin tone, the more light you need. So if everybody needs good light, and if you're deeper on the kind of scale of colors, get a good light. It'll be worth every penny, and try and find a light that's a little warmer than cool too.
Warm than cool. Okay. Yeah. So Alicia, you were gonna say.
Oh yes, I was gonna say, of course, windows are definitely important, but make sure, so this is a window obviously, but make sure that you're not shooting against the window, at least in my case for TV, because you'll be blown out completely. So if you're using this light, I would turn this way, the other way. And then I know a lot of people obviously have ring lights. I have one too, but I use 2 of these LED lights, and they have 3 different settings for skin tones. And I love it. Basically in the industry, we call it a soft focus. And that's what it does. It kind of softens everything. So you're not going to see imperfections or blemishes. It's like putting Vaseline on your lens a little bit. And it just works incredibly well. So I use it for my Zooms. I use it for my Skypes. And I love that. But yeah, what Quinn said, lighting is absolutely everything.
Yeah,
I agree.
Oh,
Yeah,
and-
Kia, we're both using ring lights.
we're both using ring lights.
Yeah. No, and I think someone mentioned that as well. I think, on Amazon, you can get them there from $29 to $79, the meat of them anyway, but they're out there and they're great. But, my only piece of advice for professionals working at home is that while the sun moves during the day, the best use for your lights, it's facing the window, just like Alicia said, not with a light behind you, with you facing the window. So that's the key I give to a lot of my executives.
That's smart. So Angela asked, what about lights when you're wearing glasses? And that's a great question. I normally am wearing glasses too. So guys, do you have any recommendations for that?
It's a really good question, because I wear glasses to have contacts on today. There are, if you want to take it to the next step, I don't want to do that, but there are actual shields you can get for your glasses that don't reflect like that. Angela, to be honest with you, I haven't discovered the key to zoom and making the light not reflect off the glasses. So maybe somebody else has the answer.
I think Quinn spoke about it, but it's how the light's positioned. So I find that when the light is above you and looking down at you, it doesn't have the glare on the glasses or reflect out. But I also know like big box stores like Lens Crafters, they do have the anti-glare glasses now. I've been getting them since last April. So they exist. They're out there.
Great.
Another thing is turn off overhead lighting. No one ever looks good in overhead lighting. I know you need it, but it's not beautiful and no one looks good with a light over their head. So make sure that those are off and you're using light coming. I imagine like if you have a clock, the light should be coming at like 10 o'clock. That helps.
That's smart. I mean, I feel like there's a whole class tutorial that should teach us and walk us through kind of how we should place the whole lighting, because I mean, there are things that we just didn't know that we like needed to be like a little bit more keen on. I never thought it would make or break a big difference, but I'm actually loving the way my ring light looks today. So thank you guys for that. So I want to switch gears a little bit here and talk about style. So Shay, this is for you. What style of tops should we embrace, and what should we avoid now that spring is approaching? Is there a silhouette, a color, a style that comes across a little better on screen? What do you think?
Well, I'll say the biggest key is to define your shoulders. Your shoulders frame your silhouette. So always make sure that I say recommend clothing that hugs the shoulders, or that you have shoulder definition, because that does frame your body. And there's some do's and don'ts with video call styling as well. Like, one of the do's is it's great to see your neck. It's nice to see, because people are talking, you want them to focus on what you're saying. I say no to turtlenecks because it makes your neck disappear entirely from a lot of video calls. So, and then for me, I talk a lot with my clients about styling for their face shape. And the overall rule with face shape and clothing is that you just don't want to have a matchy. Like, for instance, if you have a heart-shaped face so that means your chin is the most pronounced, that heart shape, then you don't want to be wearing a V-neck, because then you don't have that balance. There's no symmetry there. So it's great to always have a juxtaposition. If you have a very square face, square jaw, then I would be wearing a round or a V-neck shirt. So you can always just play with that. But that juxtaposition helps you have more balance and symmetry. And that way your mind reads those images and trusts them quickly. And, with these video calls, you don't get a lot of time to establish credibility. There's so much content out there. You want people to pay attention to what you're saying, or they can switch, click, swipe. You're quickly off the picture.
Yeah, it's a very small window of focusing in. We have a short attention span sometimes with these videos nowadays. Now, do you recommend showing skin? Is there a thing of showing too much skin? What are your recommendations for that?
My overall rule is just not to be distracting, and also to keep it professional. Again, I think we all come into these calls or whatever platform we're on with a message that we want to get across. So you don't want to take away from your messaging. You don't want to become a distraction. But I do talk a lot in my webinar on professional styling for video communications about color therapy and using colors. And Alicia mentioned it already. So much about what we wear and the color it is sends visual messages, and it projects energy. For instance, yellows and oranges and reds are vibrant, and they can't help but give you that happy boost, that mood booster when you wear them. And then also a lot of neutrals and blues, are more calm and collected, but they also encourage connectedness. So if you play into the color therapy, you can use it to your advantage.
That's helpful. And I'm sure now that everyone's probably gearing up for their spring shopping, that'll give them some tips to be looking out for what looks best on camera and things that they should avoid. Now, I am going to go out and do the same. So Alicia, now that you're an on-air personality, I know that you've had plenty of practice with this. So give us some pointers on whether or not you should look head on into the camera, or we should be positioning ourselves so that your best side is visible.
I say look head on into the camera. I think it was Shay said earlier about symmetry, and that's really important. So you want to make sure that you're dead center, that your background is actually clean and good. We'll get into that later, I'm sure. But yeah, I looked right at that camera, direct delivery, and just also posture is important, because we're sitting like at our desk or stacks of books, whatever's going on, so make sure you're just sitting up straight, right into the camera. And remember, you're not looking down like, yeah, I'm looking at the camera right now. Remember, the camera's your friend.
Yeah, I mean, it is our friend, and it's basically been our only friend for this past year.
Who knew?
Who knew that the camera would be our best friend? But Alicia, you actually just brought up a really good point. They say open posture makes you feel more powerful and communicates authority. And so your body language is super important to that. Do you want to touch on that a little bit and just kind of like give pointers and tips for people to open up their body language?
Absolutely. That's a good segue too. So for example, this week for Daily Mail TV, I got the chance to host, which I hadn't done before. And I watched one show, and the other show, my friend said, yeah, your posture in the other one, I got uncomfortable and started sinking down. But it does, everybody do it. Just sit up a little straighter, put your shoulders back. Don't you feel more alert? So as we're sitting on all these Zooms all day, it's just a way to like recheck in with your body, make sure that posture is up and good. And to your point, you feel just more confident and more alert and more alive when you're not having that tactile interaction with people. That's really important. So it's just all about the clean posture.
You know, I kind of miss, I think we've all missed just being around people. And I think we've all just gotten a little, you know, even though the camera is our friend, we've gotten a little sometimes lazy for the a lack of better words. So reminding ourselves to just kind of like sit up and, you know, look alert and sit our shoulders back just presents more. So now I will have to do that because I have a tendency to kind of slouch down and just get a little comfortable. So, and this is kind of all on the same topic, but I read that Tom Ford says to put a computer on a stack of books so that the camera is slightly higher than your head and then pointing down into your eyes. And I know that you said look straight into the camera, but do you agree with that, Quinn, Shay, Alicia?
I have what is now right by my desk a stack of books, especially if you're working on a laptop that sits low on the table. If you guys have turned your camera around and you're like this and it's horrifying, that's kind of the effect that it does. I think everybody kind of wants to have a defined kind of under jawline. And when you're looking down at something, it's just going to push everything forward and look kind of relaxed. Whereas if you raise where the camera is a little bit, you're going to get a little bit more contour underneath the jawline. And it's just, it'll be better for your posture, but it's just more flattering. So absolutely, like get whatever books you need or just stack them so that it's almost like if you're looking at somebody who's just like their head is slightly higher than yours so that you can look straight ahead, just like Alicia said, but it's just, you know, looking straight ahead and a little bit up.
Yeah. So a lot of my clients are executives. So they're looking at a computer screen all day long. And it's really important to them that they can see the content they're speaking to while they're on these calls. So for me, we've put books and risers under their computers. You know, they don't, and hardly any of them are working with O-rings and special lighting, but they're actually really on their computers all day and they have content. I style a lot of lawyers and, you know, it's so important. They have to read things off the screen. So I always think it's great to make sure that your computer, especially if you're doing calls on the computer, that your computer is also that height.
Yeah,
raise it up.
I agree with Quinn and Shay and Tom Ford. So mine's on 2 hat boxes because
that's a good one. Hat boxes.
Just 2 hat boxes because you know the books you don't want to keep. I live in a small space in New York. I don't want to keep moving these things. So 2 hat boxes, and then also I lost my train of thought. 2 hat boxes. That's important. Think about, we all know if you shoot up, right, you're gonna look a little bigger. It's not gonna be more flattering. I don't want it shooting down on me, but I need it to at least be eye level.
That's smart. I mean, I kind of have mine a little like raised where it's not necessarily shooting down, but eye level. And I have it sitting on like a desk, a foldable desk that I borrowed. I gave it to my mom for Christmas, but I had to borrow it from her today. So I have like a whole setup going on so that it's like the perfect little get up for me today. But now if we raise our computers and sitting on stacks of books, then one would see the environment behind us. So Shay, you know, can you speak a little bit, because you touched on this earlier about setting up the environment behind you. How does one do that? Because I know I was trying to figure that out myself this morning.
Well, I think, you know, I'm going to speak to the professional side of it because that is my specialty. But, you know, almost everyone that I work with is part of a brand. They represent a brand. They are the brand. So to have professional markers in the background helps just establish your credibility. So it is great to have some type of professional markers in the screen so that you can do that visually without having to prove it. You know, like you should just, it reinforces it as you speak. And then also there's little tips, like for instance, having a plant, whether it's fake or real behind you, often reminds other people to breathe and to relax. You know, nature calms us. And it is very hard to do video shoots in nature. So I always tell people, I'm like, invest. I think I've never bought more fake flowers than I did last April and May for clients. I sent everybody fake plants, like silks, everything, but because they never die and they always look good. But it's great to have that in your eyesight. It shows that you know how to breathe, that you want to help keep people grounded. So that's very important as well. And I also think that, having a space that this was one of the questions that Stephanie had sent me, was that do you want to match your background? No, but you want to be comfortable in your background. Your background should say something about who you are too. Like, again, we're inviting people into our homes, into our offices like we never did before. And if for the first time, I think ever, we are in the driver's seat. We can control what you see. What a luxury. Pre-COVID, I would have to go style clients at big stadiums or on stages that we hadn't seen before until we walked in. So like, we have an advantage now, and we want to take advantage of it and style it the best we can.
I think that's all super helpful. I mean, styling the background is a part of styling ourselves too. And it just kind of like sets the scene and sets the platform and the stage that you're presenting on. Is there anything that you would say for someone to not put in their background?
Well, sometimes having too much in the background can be distracting. Again, it comes back to the messaging. So you don't want so much in the background that you can't focus on the person that's speaking. And I also have a lot of clients that ask that they have a corporate backdrop that's behind them. And my key there is not to be wearing stripes and patterns and small prints, because they move when you move. And Alicia, you can speak to this because that's one of the do's and don'ts of television is, you just don't wear loud on camera, because when you move, then it blurs. The same principle applies for those backgrounds. So if you are using a background or a backdrop that is computer generated, be careful of that, and keep your movements small. Solids are best.
I don't love those backgrounds. What do you guys think about them? The ones for the Zoom, or the ones that you can create, the computer generated ones. I don't actually love them because they kind of cut you off a little bit.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think they're kind of cheesy, to be honest, until it improves. But, to Shay's point, we call it moiraying in the business. So when you're wearing very close patterns, they tend to blur. Some people actually can give them seizures, believe it or not. So you have to be very careful about close patterns, stripes, all of that kind of stuff. And that's my number one pet peeve, though, with Zoom, our backgrounds. When people have messy, disturbing backgrounds, it just annoys me. I love Shay's tip because it's my tip too. Have a clean background and get some flowers. So I live by a bodega. I just get bodega flowers, but I do have a bunch of fake plants. You can just rotate them out and just make so books, some plants, and call it a day.
Smart. Now, Quinn, talking about backgrounds and setting up the lighting. So, what did you say?
With my plain background, now I feel.
Sorry, Quinn, that was a shade. No, that was a shade.
No. This is all.
It's clean though, Quinn. It's clean.
Modern minimalism.
So are there any beauty products that you are loving at the moment that you can recommend to our viewers that are great? Any ones that you want to give some love to?
Everybody needs some powder, even if you're somebody who doesn't wear powder in your regular life. I would just recommend getting some kind of pressed or loose powder. Actually, even L'Oreal makes one called Set and Lock, or Infallible Set and Lock. It's $10. It works on everyone's skin tone. It won't make kind of a cast on darker skin. For darker skin tones, I would recommend Laura Mercier has it's called Medium Deep Setting Powder, and it's the best color that I've ever found. It doesn't add too much color, but it doesn't cast a gray tone. It's definitely worth it. Even if you don't wear powder, you're going to want to do your T-zone. So imagine a T here. Right here tends to get like shiny spots, so even just having like a little powder on the side of, and even if you go off and then, or do it, it's okay to have natural kind of dewy or luminosity everywhere else. You don't ever really want to look shiny right here and not along up here. I would definitely say also don't use moisturizers or shimmers in your foundation that are too emollient, because then you are just going to look too slick, and then you have to use more powder. So I would start off with a more neutral canvas. And then, you know, for some people, primers work really well. Hourglass has a great primer. I mean, there's so many out on the market, but that can help limit the shine, and then you don't have to touch up as much. Definitely do everything that's kind of the unseen, invisible work. Fill in your brows really well. You know, even out your skin tone. Even if you don't like wearing lipstick, at least get like a tinted balm, or what some even like Clinique has some color called Whole Lot of Honey in a pencil thing that just looks like your lip. Pretty universal. So you can put that on if you don't want to look like you're wearing a lip color. You know, something in that world of like brown, raisiny, little red, like that looks good on pretty much everyone. And then it looks like polished and you show up, but you're not looking like literally like you just hopped out of bed.
Well, we don't want to look like we just hopped out of bed. That is definitely never the goal.
One more thing, if you do want highlight, because people do like to have that, find something that doesn't have a whole lot of shimmer in it or too much reflect on it. Go look for something subtle. Again, Hourglass has like a trio of 3 colors, and they're very low in the shimmer, so that on camera, and I'm sure Alicia probably has a recommendation for a good highlight on camera, but you cannot wear the same one that you would wear to go out, because it's just going to blow out.
1000%. Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, Quinn. I use mattifying. First of all, everything's matte. I don't want anything dewy. I don't want anything bright. And so that's actually why I've stayed away from highlighters, because that one little bit can make you look sweaty and just a mess. So everything you guys matte, and then I use like a Peter Thomas Roth as a base. And just, I want to bring out no moisture. I want everything to be, because you're going to be sitting, these lights are very hot too. If you're sitting all day, you start looking sweaty, and my powder is always right by as well.
Now, speaking of that, because the lights are hot, what in terms of SPF, are you kind of putting that on as a base layer and then you're putting the powders on over?
That's a good question. I wish I was putting on SPF. I'm not, so somebody else do.
I do every day.
SPF and like my moisturizer, so it's just done.
Okay.
Some makeups that have SPF. I mean, if you're there, you do need protection, even if you're inside. Obviously, if you're outside, you need a lot more. But I think that it's just a good habit for everyone of every skin tone to get in the habit of wearing SPF. It just is like the sun is really not good for anyone.
No.
There is a brand called Goop, Super Goop. It's not Gwyneth Paltrow. It's called Super Goop, and in my opinion, they make the most non-SPF-y, non-heavy, non-clog pouring sheer SPFs. They're really good. They don't feel like the stuff that like you know, you may have worn in the past that was too white or reflective or not, you know, or
That
just
has the cast.
yeah.
Quinn, I actually wear that Super Goop. I wear it, and it's got a matte finish, or you can get one with a matte finish. So I really like that one. Yeah, it's good.
Yeah.
The freckle-faced kid wears sunscreen every day, all the time.
I like the Super Goop as well. One of our guests here today has a question for you, and it's geared towards you, Shay. They'd like to know about brand database for stylists. They were present in the British GQ style file recently and would want to connect with artist stylists. Do you have any recommendations on that?
So as far as the directory goes, I mean, for instance, I'm a member of Fashion Group International, and every year we get a super huge thick book that has everyone who's a member of Fashion Group International, all the brands. It tells us who works there, who to call. Is that what this person who's asking the question? They're from a brand, and they're.
It sounds like they are an independent stylist, and
they're independent stylists. Okay.
Yeah, it sounds like they're independent stylists, and they want to understand about a brand database for stylists. I guess getting into that.
Okay. Well, I think starting with a membership of Fashion Group International. Yes. Soda. Yes. Fashion Group International would be a great place to start. But then also, I mean, we're on it right now. Glam Hive. Hello. It is the largest, excuse me, my golden doodle is barking. But it is the largest database of stylists.
I guess your golden doodle has something to say too.
My dog is so codependent ever since COVID. I am now the emotional support person for my pet.
No, they're definitely great to have. Okay, well, that's super helpful. And I hope so that helped you out for future. But, and speaking of dogs and noise in the background, are there any recommendations, Alicia, Shay, Quinn, that you might have for kind of tuning that out? I know I had to turn down my smart device because I've had recently where if you say something that sounds like the two ladies' names that you call when you have a question, they turn on and they want to start talking to you. So how do you guys handle that?
I think it just depends also where you live, who you're living with, right? So if you have little kids or your parents are around, maybe obviously you want to go to a space that's quiet, but you can't control everything. I live in New York City, so I can't control the siren that just went by. I don't know if y'all heard it. A tip though, I always turn off my heat because that sound picks up very quick. So just control what you can control. Make sure your phone's muted, mine is, or on silent, excuse me. And everything else kind of is what it is, right? We're all doing the best we can.
And I think it's important, as you could just tell when my dog barked and interrupt our session, we're inviting people into our homes. Everybody, this is life. I think most of my clients didn't know I had a child, or if they did, we never talked about it. You show up, you do your job and you go home. But, when they walk into the frame, you can only control what you control. But we are human. And I think that part, it helps us relate to other people. What can I say?
Right. So, Alicia, how would you keep people engaged in the conversation? Do you have any recommendations when there are multiple people on the call and you're saying things? How do you keep the conversation going?
I think every 5 minutes or so, like I've been doing a lot of Clubhouse lately, and I like some techniques on there. Engage with people, like after 5 minutes, ask a direct question or poise it to the audience. So that's why when I said everybody sit up straighter, do it with me. It was just a way to re-engage because so often now we're being talked to and talked at, and people want to feel like they are involved. So make sure that you are reaching out. It could be a general question or a statement or just something to remind people we're in this together.
We are in this together. That's definitely smart and helpful. Quinn, do you have anything to add in terms of? I thought you were going to say something a little bit.
I was just saying that was really helpful because when she said sit up straight, I did it again when she just said it. So it definitely works. I mean,
Thank you.
The only thing I can think of is not to answer your question. If someone's real extra and wants to be like beauty, whatever, too, another trick that you can do is almost use like on fashion shoots, we have either white or something golden like underneath. So you can almost make your table lighter and that can act as a reflecting coming up. So even just like white poster board or a towel or anything that's going to like push light around. If one of your concerns is that you just feel like you need that extra beauty coming through or you just want to look good that day, that really actually is something
that's smart.
Had nothing to do with what you thought.
I think we're coming kind of towards the end, and I'm not sure if you, Shay, Alicia, or Quinn have any final thoughts or any tidbits, things that we didn't get to cover that you might have wanted to share. Shay, any tips for those of us trying to better our style in the coming months?
Well, I think that I guess I'll just say, again, our image matters. And, an 80 to 90% of the information we receive is visual information. So we're drinking people in, we're drinking in their environments. So as much as you can sculpt that, style that, and try to put your best self forward, I think that's really important. And the time is now to do it. I think that everyone could use just a little refresh at the start of every year. This is a new year. It's good to get excited. I want everyone to feel really good in the skin they're in. I've had a lot of clients have dramatic body changes during the last year. And, I tell them all, I said, it doesn't matter if your body is not perfect right now, or if you feel like you've lost weight or you gained weight, but you do need to love the skin you're in. And because I think that helps you project and put your best self forward. So I give a lot of these styling tips on my website and on my Instagram. So, everyone can find me. It's my name in all of those channels. But I'm grateful to be here and share my expertise. I've learned so much today from each and every one of you. So I just wanted to say thank you. So thank you, Alicia. Thank you, Quinn.
Yeah, no, I
Thank you,
think all of our bodies have changed during this time. And I think it is important because there's so much pressure for all of us to look a certain way, act a certain way, be a certain way. Image is the first thing that people see when they see you. So, a lot of times, we can judge, we're our biggest critic. And if we don't feel good, then that sort of emotion or that feeling kind of projects onto others. And it's about the feeling that you have for within. I think style is all about is an internal feeling first than it is sometimes an outward. Someone asked me today, like, how do you have style? And I was like, that's an interesting question. Like, is that something that you can learn or you just have from within? And I think it is kind of within, and it starts kind of in the mind first than it does, just going to a store and picking out clothes. Alicia, since you are our TV camera personality, any tips that you'd like to share, final thoughts?
Yeah, I guess my top 3 takeaways is put your dust rag like right on your computer. Every time you open that computer, clean your lens. Also, as far as symmetry goes, I forgot to talk about head space. So your head should be about 1 inch from the top of your computer screen. So make sure you don't have too much or too little. And then the third, get those flowers. If they're fake, if they're real, whatever it is, just that pop of color, that punch, it does calm you and make you happy and just stand out.
The flowers is a very good point too. I tried to put my 2 little
They're pretty.
those are actually real. They're actually not fake. So there was from a bouquet that was kind of dwindling, and those are still looking nice and bright. But Shay, actually, someone asked earlier, where were you getting your high quality silk flowers from? Did you have any places in mind that you could share?
Yeah, I bought them from everywhere. I think I got some off of Wayfair. I got some off of Overstock. Literally, I was buying them from do a Google search. You can do a Google shopping search, but yeah. I literally had bought them from so many places. I think even Ballard and Front Gate were 2 different places that I bought from as well.
Great. And Alicia, someone just asked, Megan just asked if you could repeat your headspace tip.
I was actually just typing back to her. Yes, I can. So your headspace should be about 1 inch from the top of your camera. So it shouldn't be obviously like this, not like this. You just want about 1 inch. So it's like a natural, easy framing. So just not too much, not too little. And that's part of that symmetry we were talking about.
So basically you should be fitting yourself to the frame and not necessarily allowing the top of the computer or your phone off.
1000%. It's kind of gone back to what Tom Ford said. You don't want to shoot up. So if you have too much headspace, it's still gonna look crazy, right? Like that's not a good angle. And then if you have less, it's cutting you off. Just an inch above, and that's natural and it's not distracting.
Smart. And Quinn, any final thoughts you can share with our guests today on how to live our best beauty lives on Zoom since we can't see each other in person?
If you don't live in New York City and you do have different exposures in your home, think about like if it's an Eastern exposure and you have a morning Zoom and you can go in front of that window, that's where the light is going to be in the morning. If it's later on in the afternoon, maybe pick up your laptop and go to a Western exposure because that's where the light is also going to be coming through. The other thing is, despite the gray background here, a lot of times we've found, like when I'm shooting someone in a hotel room before they leave for an event, it's nice sometimes to have a little wallpaper or a deep, navy or a color. It's better than just white. Like just white in the background is usually not the best, or, even having curtains that you can open that give some kind of movement or texture. And then the last thing is like, the only rule is make it look good. So if you're looking at it and you're like, I don't like it, you have to play. Even the best photographers take a minute to find their light and find their shot. So like you can take your computer and move it and walk around and go around your house until you go, oh, this looks better. And then go from there, because it's trial and error. And I would just not give up until you find out like where your spots are, and then everything else is easy.
As my mother always likes to say, practice makes perfect. I'm sure we all heard that growing up. So it's about finding that light and finding what works. So, well, thank you so much for that. I just want to say thank you all so much for joining us today. Thank you, Alicia, Shay, and Quinn for talking with me. This has really been an amazing experience. I hope you all learned a lot. I certainly did, and I will be well prepared for my next Zoom event. So now you guys will have a 5-minute transition and take a quick break before entering into the next session from the agenda tab on our conference site. Thanks again, everyone.
Thank
Bye,
you.
guys. Thank
Thank
you.
you so much. Bye, guys.